Life speaks. It speaks through struggles and success, through music and messages, the preconceived and the unexpected. Whether you are in the depths of the valley or in the midst of your mountaintop experience, everyone needs to be encouraged from time to time. Here we will share stories of strength, testimonies of triumph, verses of victory, observations, and information meant to touch the heart and uplift the soul, to keep you on your path of purpose and navigate this thing called life with power and authority. This is Andrea Hines, and I'm your host for When Life Speaks, here on ALH Broadcasting, an affiliate of the Streaming Inspirational Broadcast Network. I am glad you accepted the invitation to join us tonight. There's something in this broadcast just for you, and if it is going to be a blessing to your life, it will be to someone else as well. So share, tag, start a watch party, and invite someone you know to join us. Then turn down the volume of life and get ready to receive, so that when life speaks, you'll speak life. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to When Life Speaks. So glad to have you with us this evening. I see we've got some folks that have come in already that we want to welcome. But first, I just want to let you know that I'm not alone, as you can see. Tonight, I have a special guest on with me, and her name is Ruth Griffin. And we're going to talk to Ruth in just a few minutes. But first, I want to welcome those who've already come on the line. Francina Booker, good evening to you. Glad to have you. Miss Linda Cooks is with us. Ida Batts, Angie Oliphant is with us. Good evening to you. Bernice, thank you for being with us as well. I'm so glad that you have decided to tune in to When Life Speaks, because, you know, we say it every week. You could be anywhere doing anything, but you chose to spend some time with us. So we are very, very glad to have you. Glad to have you. I want to get the housekeeping rules out of the way in the beginning. So if any of you out there would like to be a guest on When Life Speaks, if you have a story of triumph, a testimony that you think would be helpful to somebody else, if you shared it, let us know. If there is a particular topic that you want us to explore, let us know. If you want to become a part of the village, that's those folks who are very faithful to us and who weigh in from time to time on the topics that we have, let us know. And how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to send us an email to speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com. That's speaklifewithandrea@gmail.com. So there you have it. We got all of our information out for right now. And I want to introduce you to Ruth Griffin. Ruth is an author. Ruth is an artist. Ruth is a co-host on Authors Up on Sunday evenings. Ruth does any number of things, graphic design. She does set design. She does many, many things and does them all well. That's another thing. She does them all well. So good evening to you, Ruth. How you doing tonight?
I am well, and thank you for that introduction. You make me sound like Superwoman. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think you are.
That explains why I'm tired then.
Ruth is a friend. She's also my publisher. She is just a delightful lady. And there is, we're just going to share our heart on some things tonight. It is, we have an important topic actually that we want to talk about, and it is Ruth's journey. I'm going to say that it's
Mm.
Ruth's journey, but it's not a journey that a lot of us don't have. And I say that because we all have issues. We don't have the same issues, but we all have issues. We don't have the same story, but we all have a story.
Yeah.
And we don't always have the same struggles, but we do struggle from time to
Mm.
time because that's life. That's the way that life is. And those, sometimes we just have to deal with the hand that we are dealt. And we get through. We've had some interesting programs here recently, but before I get into that, Ruth, some of my listeners know you, some don't. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about where you're from and your family, and some things like that that some of our listeners may not know?
Sure, sure. So I am a New Jersey native. Lived there till I was about a teenager. Met my husband in Ohio. Ended up moving to North Carolina about 23 years ago. And this is now home. So we have my husband and I, Maurice. We have four adult children. So we finally have an empty nest. Yay! Um, and it's just it's been an amazing journey. Like you said, I'm an author, 7 times publisher as well, graphic designer. I just, you know what, I enjoy the arts, and I don't say this braggingly. I am talented, gifted in that area, so I enjoy using the gifts that I have for
Mhm.
other people. I enjoy using it for God. So oftentimes, even to my detriment, sometimes I just say yes because I enjoy creating, I enjoy writing, I enjoy sharing all that, and I enjoy helping other people, drawing that out of other people. So, I've been able to help about 20 publishers or 20 authors publish their
Mhm.
books, and that has been a wonderful journey. I kind of I tell people that I never wanted to be a publisher. That God kind of said, "Okay, you're going to be one." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that." And it worked out that way, and I am so glad because just to be able, and honestly, I know the joy that comes from holding your book for the first time, and
Yes.
I get that same joy holding other people's books and going, "Wow, we did that." So, um that's basically who I am. Yeah.
Well, 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 basically who you are is a lot.
Basically, yeah. Well, yeah. No, when you start talking about it, you're just like, "Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
is a lot."
I
But
do that too. I do that too. But it is, I am so impressed with the things that you do, and you do them so well.
thank you.
The old adage is the jack of all trades and master of none, but
Hmm.
the things that you do, the things that you produce are masterful, and they are
Thank you.
done in excellence. And I'm just, um, uh,
Thank
grateful
you.
that I have the opportunity to benefit from your talents, lady. I do appreciate it. But
Thank you.
but tonight we want to talk about something that we don't always get to do, and that is take things full circle and look at them from the other side.
Yeah.
Ruth was a guest on When Life Speaks several months ago. Well, quite a while. I think it made it
Maybe several years
in a
actually at
year.
this point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And she talked about living life bipolar.
Hmm.
And as long as I had known her, hey, Victoria, I did not know. I didn't know that that was something that she was battling with.
Hmm.
And since that time, and since she came on the show, a lot has happened with her. And one of the things that has happened with her is a book that was published, authored with her husband, Maurice, um, talking about that journey. Yeah, put it up there again so people can see what the cover looks like. That's right.
There you
That's right.
go.
When love is angry. When
Yep.
love is angry. And
Yep.
it's a wonderful book. And it's a wonderful book whether you are married, whether you were single.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. There are things in that book that will absolutely touch your heart and strengthen you and encourage you as well. But we've had a series of shows, Ruth. We talked about the pain of the past and handling the pain of the past. And we have also talked about healthy communication, which is
Yep.
something that was a really, really big issue that
Hmm.
came through in the book that you and Maurice did about When
Yes.
Love is Angry. And we've talked about uh, healing,
Yes.
what it means to be healed from those broken places, because a lot of times we think we're healed and we're not. And tonight we're going to take an approach, not so much of pain, not so much from the
Hmm.
past, not so much from healing of broken places, but about being made whole,
Hmm.
because there's a difference, and it takes all of that. It takes all of those components to really feel like you're whole, that
Hmm.
you got everything that you need to live the abundant life that we always speak about. So I'm going to, I don't know where you want to start in this journey, so I'm kind of going to leave that up to you. You may want to start with with your diagnosis of being bipolar. You may want to start a little bit before that, because you went for many years not knowing what was wrong. Am I right about that?
Yes. Yes. That's
Mhm.
right. And actually, as I think about it now, I probably had my first episode when I was about 15 years old.
Oh,
I
wow.
just, I just remember breaking down, crying for no reason. I mean, it really was nothing that was worth the tears, and my mom was just confounded because she didn't know what to do. And um, I don't remember too much in between. I know that when I started having kids, I experienced some of the postpartum depression that some women experience, but it just would not go away. And I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew that something was wrong. I didn't know how to put a name to it. And finally, I wrote it in the book, but I was watching a commercial one day. I was probably around 30. So it was 15 years. I went undiagnosed. I was watching a commercial for, it was probably medication, but they were talking about bipolar, and I just remember seeing this woman. They froze her right in the middle of an outburst, and I just remember
Mhm.
thinking how ugly she looked, and knowing that that was me, knowing that what she was experiencing was what I was experiencing, and I finally had a name to it. And it was shortly after that that I made an appointment with my family doctor and was diagnosed as bipolar. Um,
Mhm. Ruth, when you were diagnosed, where were you in the family dynamic? You and Maurice were married,
yes, yes,
and you did you have your children already?
yes.
Okay.
So they were really young. So it would have been around 2005. So my youngest would have been 5. The oldest would have been around 8. So
Mhm.
8 or 9 years old. So they were young, and at that point they had already experienced mom being mom. So,
Mhm.
the emotional outburst, the crying, the all of that that went with the mood changes. And this was something that I didn't understand until recently. I was a rapid cycler. I was talking to someone today, so I will explain what that is. But a rapid cycle means that you have the episodes more often. There are some people who may only have one episode a year. There are some people who have maybe 2 to 3. I was having up to 6
Well,
episodes a year. So every 2 months for 2 weeks, I would experience this depression that was just so crippling. There were oftentimes I'm high functioning, so I was able to do what I needed to do, but
mhm.
it broke me completely to be able to do it. And
Mhm.
sometimes my family suffered because um, I couldn't control my emotions. I couldn't control the tears. I couldn't control things that were happening to me. And I just thought, I finally had a name to it, but when I met my first psychologist, his first words to me were, okay, there's no cure for this, so we're just going to have to learn how to live with it. And when you're in the middle of an episode, that's not what you want to hear. That's not um what you can process. So I pretty much gave up before I ever started. And at that point I was just like, okay, well, I'm going to take the medication and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Your children, now that they are older, have you had conversation with them? Have you asked them what it was like for them when they were younger? Have you all had any kind of dialogue about that? And the reason that I ask is because I know in the book, um, Maurice was sharing
mhm,
that because you didn't really talk about it, a lot. And I think you had mentioned it, that there were just some things that you discovered in the
mhm,
writing of the book in terms
yeah.
of how he was feeling and how he was dealing with all of this that you didn't even know, that you didn't
Mhm.
realize until you began the journey in writing When Love is Angry. So what about your kids? Where were they in all of this? And have you ever talked about it?
And here's the funny part, because I was not talking to my husband at the time, but I had no problem talking to the kids.
Hmm.
After, especially after the diagnosis, because, and I think part of my mind was that, even though when we both married, we said, okay, divorce is not an option, there was still that small thought that said, if a marriage can be done, it can be undone. But parents are forever. So
Hmm.
it was easier to get the forgiveness of a child than it was possibly to get a forgiveness of a spouse. So I had always been open with them. I had been apologetic to whatever degree I could. My grandmother was schizophrenic. I I have other family members who are also bipolar. So it was always I was always honest with them. It was okay, this is genetic. God forbid you guys ever have to deal with it, but I want you to know I'm not just crazy. It is an actual disease, that your mom's dealing with. Have I talked to them about it? Um, I have not openly asked them, hey, what'd you think of your mom back then? I don't know that that's a conversation I necessarily want to have, but it is something that I've left open, and even with the ups and downs of life as they enter into adulthood, they have come back to me to ask about, okay, how do I deal with this, because I know you've experienced it. So I know
Hmm.
to that degree, that openness has helped them
Hmm.
in the process, and you know we've talked about it to that degree.
Hmm. What do you think are the most important um, keys, if you will, when you don't know? When you have that sense that, okay, something's not right.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is. I don't know why I'm responding to things the way that I'm responding. And I would imagine, and I could be wrong, but I would imagine it just puts you at a place of confusion in not understanding what's happening with you. You know,
Right.
how do you navigate that? How do you get on the other side of that? How did you get on the other side of that?
Well, you have to be willing to be open, honest with yourself at least. Because it wasn't until I saw that commercial that I could openly say, okay, maybe that's what's wrong. And even my doctor, when I approached her, and here's the thing, and this is why I say you have to be open to it, because um my doctor, every time I would see her, she would say, and I had been diagnosed with asthma earlier that year, which to me was just as crippling, because all of a sudden I couldn't breathe. And to me, that was bigger because, you need to breathe to be alive. So it's like, oh my God, now I can't breathe. Um, but every time I saw my doctor, she would ask me, is there anything else I can help you with? And I would always say, no, 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 I'm fine. And I did that for several months before I was able to say, to work up the courage to say, okay, I think something's wrong with me. I think I'm bipolar. And she actually fussed at me for like 2 minutes and said, I have been asking you that for months. I'm glad you're finally telling me, but you should have said something earlier. But it was just me being willing to be open to that. Because I mean, if we look at it, for the longest time, it was never hidden from us that my our grandmother was sick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we always knew that that was a possibility. We always understood that it was genetic. So
Uh-huh.
I think having that openness, which is what encouraged me to be open with the kids, you know, made that a real possibility for me to say, okay, maybe that's what's wrong with me. So even if I didn't have that background, I think, you have to be willing to say, yeah, that is a possibility. And yes, I have to be courageous enough to talk to my doctor. Because
Mm-hmm.
even, she was upfront with me. She was like, well, you sound really lucid about it, which made me wonder if I was just making it up, but then that's what bipolar does.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think a lot of people are just in denial that something like that could happen to them. But, it's like you said, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it could happen to you. And if we can't be afraid of a diagnosis because we can't fix what we don't
Right.
know is wrong.
Right.
So if we're willing to be honest with ourselves, we can get to the other side of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In writing the book with Maurice, what was one of the and I know you had said there were some things that you
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. Um, can you share with us um, what you were most surprised about, or what was revealed in the writing of the book that really kind of made you go, "Oh, wait a minute, is that what was going on?" Because that's what happens when you begin to pull the layers back.
Oh
um,
yeah.
Even if it's not that kind of diagnosis or anything. I know for myself I've had instances where somebody said, this is how that particular comment made me feel, or this is,
Mm-hmm.
I had somebody tell me something and I was giving them a direction to do something and they weren't responding. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, last time I talked to you about that, you kind of took my head off. And I thought, I'm not going down that road again. And I thought, wow, what did I even say? What was it? How did I really react that left this person in a place of feeling that way? So I
Mm-hmm.
think there are always some things that don't get communicated that when they do,
Mm-hmm.
it really kind of takes us by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share one of those with
Sure,
us?
sure, sure. And I'll be honest, I think the whole book was a surprise to me because I didn't start it, which really surprised me because, having been through this journey now, so the diagnosis was in 2005, so that's math, and I'm not going to do that right now. Um, what, 16, 17 years. So, it's been a while since my diagnosis, but I had always been transparent, and I knew I would write a book about it one day, but I never expected Maurice to initiate it, and I knew that our communication was not great. There was a point where I was just fed up and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And again, not that I considered divorce, but it was just like, Lord, I can't do this. This is not how a marriage is supposed to be. And that's when God started telling me, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be quiet, number one, and let me work. And I was like, all right, all right. And he told me specifically, he said, just start writing everything down. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do with it? And he was like, just write everything down. Just leave it at that. I'm like, okay, fine. So I started doing that, started writing everything down, and every once in a while I would go back to God and I would say, okay, well, what do I do with this? And he'd just like, don't worry about it. And so was it right after the pandemic started? My husband came to me and he said, I wrote a book. And I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that. He's like, no, you have to write part of it. I'm like, I definitely was not expecting that. And, the first, I was kind of scared because I didn't know what to expect from the book. But, when I read it, there were two things that I understood. This was God finally answering my question because I kept telling him, okay, what went on in that time when we weren't talking? But it was also him telling me, okay, this is why I told you to write everything down. So,
Mm,
in that, you know, and I think this is the part that really surprises my husband because he had not shared any of the stuff that he wrote in the book with me, and I think part of him was scared how I would react. But when God is doing something, especially with something with more than one person,
mm,
he's already talking to everybody.
yeah.
And he was definitely talking to my husband just as he was talking to me, and he was working those things out, and he was working us together towards the same goal, so that
Hmm.
when we got there were no hard feelings. There was no, okay, I was mad because all, no, what I saw was not that he failed. What I saw was, okay, God was working this out. Why would I be mad? I'm in a good spot now. So, it's just, it's amazing to me, and that I think was the biggest surprise to me from the book itself,
Hmm.
how he worked it out.
It was all a part of the healing
Hmm.
process.
Yes.
We talk about that a lot, about the process, because God, He never does everything all one way.
Mm-mm.
He's not a one way God, and He doesn't do it at the same time.
Right.
He may be working a little bit out of part A over here, but he's working a little bit about part B over here at the same time. And I think that when we get to a point of trusting him,
Hmm.
and understanding that he wants us whole.
Yes.
He doesn't want us struggling. He doesn't
Hmm.
want us at that place of discouragement, and that place of defeat, and that place of wanting to give up, wanting to throw
Hmm.
throw in the towel. He has a plan.
Yeah.
He has a plan, and the plan is not just for you. We always think, well,
Hmm.
this is it's my journey, it's my story, it's my heartache, it's my pain, it's my, and it's not. It's not
Hmm.
all about you, and it's not all for you. During that, you talked about, and since we had a show on healthy communication, you were saying that you all were not talking.
Right.
Tell me what that looks like, because my not talking means I went in the kitchen, but I'm still running my mouth probably. but to not be communicating, what was that really?
I mean, it
Was it
literally.
like was it like total silence? Was it like you didn't talk much to each other, or was it truly just not communicating at all?
It was, and just like everything else, everything is a process. So it started off with, okay, we're not going to talk about the important stuff. So we would talk about the kids, we would talk about the bills, we would talk about the house. Slowly that started denigrating until we weren't even talking about the kids. It was just literally he would come home, I would ask a question, and I'll be honest, it just, for me, I'm the talker, seemingly. My husband actually does talk a lot. Um, uh, so if you know him and he talks to you, you consider yourself blessed. Um, but it was me talking, and because of, the title of the book is intentional. When love was angry, and when you're angry, you don't see things the way they are. So I was a very negative person, and I didn't let a lot of people see that side of me, so unfortunately he got the brunt of it. So a lot of things would get the negative spin, so rather than confront me, he would just stop, not say anything. We would get into arguments, and then he would just not say anything about it. There were times when I would try to argue, and he just would not argue with me, and nothing upsets a woman more than a man who will not argue with her. So, there were times when, it just started denigrating over the years where we just slowly stopped talking about the important things. We stopped praying, stopped talking about the things of God. We would not talk about, service or nothing. And then right before my surgery, I think it was 2016 or 2017, it came down to literally not talking. If I asked a question or if he asked, there would literally not be an answer. It would might be like a yes or a no, but there wouldn't be an answer beyond that. So
Well,
it got to that point, but that was the point where we said, okay, no more. Where I said to God, I can't do this anymore. And that's when God started saying, okay, well, then I need you to do this and I need you to do that. And that's when he told me to stop talking and he told my husband to start talking.
wow.
So, you know, you trust the process, but you trust God above all that.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think that I'm not quite sure how to put it. Do you think that you would have discovered some of the things that you discovered if it had not been for the book? It just seems like when you get into that writing process and when you get
Mhm.
into that process of really um, being open
Mhm.
and transparent, that sometimes you surprise yourself.
Mhm.
Did you kind of have some of those moments in writing it all down and using what you had written? Because actually, it's like you were kind of following each other or
Right.
following his lead with it. I'll put it
Yes.
that way, because he would write, and then you would kind of respond to what he had written.
Yes, and it's funny because that has been the most I won't say talked about, but most of the people that we've talked to said that that was the best part of the book. That was it was the call and response. So
Mhm.
to get both sides, it's thing for me to talk about my journey, about my disease, about how I saw that it affected my family, but to hear from both sides, I think that that's what made the book stand out. But even the book itself, because like I said, I was the one doing all the talking, and most of it was negative, and that's when God said, okay, you need to be quiet. And that's when God told him, okay, you need to talk. And he slowly started talking. I started seeing differences, started getting text messages from him when before I couldn't even get a response. And then when he actually wrote the book, it was again me responding to that. But, I think itself, you know, that part was the biggest surprise because to me it wasn't so much that my husband was actually, he was never open about his affection. I knew he loved me, but I didn't see it, but now I could. But that wasn't the biggest surprise. It was just in seeing those changes, it was God telling me, "Okay, I heard you when you talked to me." And
Mhm.
it's not that, okay, I prayed and God changed my husband, because that's not how it works. It
Mhm.
was, I prayed, I let God work in me, and then I saw a change in my husband. And
Mhm.
now I'm
Mhm.
happy to respond to
Mhm.
him however he needs me to. So,
Mhm. What do you think is the biggest change in you?
in me,
Mhm.
um, my joy, to be honest. I don't even say it's happiness, because happiness is an emotion that changes, but joy is a constant state of mind.
Mhm.
And that has been, I had always, if you'd have asked me even 3 4 years ago, I would have told you, oh no, I'm an inherently negative person. I'm inherently what was the word for it, but I'm a pessimist. And
Pessimist.
people are like, well, no, you can't be inherently pessimist. I'm like, well, I'm just a born pessimist. No, that outlook has changed completely. um it's just God has changed that completely, and not necessarily because okay, my husband now pays attention to me, or we're in a good place, or we have an empty nest or anything like that. But it's just he has changed my outlook on me, on him, on everything, and it's just that to me has been the biggest change, and that has been the biggest surprise. It has been the biggest gift because regardless of what happens, regardless of whatever diagnosis I get, I still have that peace, that joy inside of me that says, you know what? I can make it through that garbage. I'm going to make it through this and I'm going to be all right.
And I'm gonna be all right. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. There is a scripture, uh, Ruth. I don't know if you have it out. Your First Corinthians 10 and 13.
Yep.
Tell us. You might want to read it real quickly, and then tell us what that scripture means to you.
Okay. All right. So he says, no temptation or of affliction has overtaken you except what is common to humanity. God is faithful and he will not allow you to be afflicted beyond what you are able. But with the affliction, he will also provide a way of escape so that you are able to bear it. And that to me has become my flag scripture because it tells me two things that, you know what, bipolar, not a whole 25% of the population suffers with some kind of mental illness or mental issues. That's
Right.
that's 25% of the population. So, but we think that we're alone. There is such a stigma in this country, in this world, that it's just in your mind. That's not a real
Right.
disease, whatever. And it tells me that, you know what, this is common to mankind. This is common to humanity. God saw it and he knows that it's real and that it's not just something that is in my mind or that I made up. But because he saw it and he knows that it's real, he has a way out for me. I don't have to just learn how to deal with it the way my doctor said,
Right. Right.
and that's the thing, from a humanistic point of view, the doctor was correct. I was not in the place to hear it and to start my treatment, but
Hmm.
he wasn't having a bad day. That was just his poor bedside matter. But the thing is, God says, you know what? Yeah, it's common, but if you just listen to me, I have a way to heal you from it. I have a way to make your life whole. And
Yes.
that is the point. You mentioned wholeness before. I was talking to someone a couple weeks ago and I said, you know what? If God had healed me the first time I asked him to from bipolar, I would have been no good to anybody because I would have continued having a low self esteem. I would have continued
Right. Yeah.
having a low self worth. None of it would have fixed what was wrong with me. But by going through what I did, by learning how to change my mindset, by learning how to control what I could control and giving the rest to God, God not only is healing me from the bipolar, he's also healing me from the low self-esteem, the other physical
Yeah.
issues that I have. And it's funny, I tell people this, I don't understand it, but I started this journey off over 216 pounds. I wasn't exercising, I wasn't eating right, I was on medication. I'm no longer on medication. I have lost 81 pounds. And here's the thing, even stuff that you didn't know was wrong, I was allergic to lipstick of all things. And as I started doing all that, I finally found I'm finally able to wear makeup fully because of the process. I didn't even know that was something that was wrong.
Yep.
And now I can do that,
Yeah.
and God wants you to be whole. He wants to fix everything. He just doesn't want to fix one thing.
Right.
So if you will just trust him with the thing that you're afflicted with, he's got a way
Mhm.
out. And it's not just for me, it's not just for you, it's for everybody. That scripture applies to everybody. Everybody's got a different process. The way you said it, everybody's got a different affliction, a different journey, but he's got a way out for every one of us, all 8 billion people on this planet. He's
Isn't that
got a way
amazing?
out. Yeah.
Isn't that
It's just an
amazing?
amazing thing.
Oh, he's a wonderful God.
Mhm.
Before we close tonight, I want to read that scripture in the Message Bible. You know,
Mhm.
everybody knows I love the Message Bible, but
Mhm.
it says, "No test or temptation that comes your way is beyond the course of what others have had to face. All you need to remember is that God will never let you down."
Yep.
All you need to remember is that God will never let you down. He'll never let you be pushed past your limit. He'll always be there to help you come through it.
Mhm.
He'll always be there to help you come through it. And
Yep.
I tell you, when he brings you through it, just like you said, he's not going to bring you through part of it. He's going to
That's
bring
right.
you all the way through it. He's going to mend those things that you may
Mhm.
not have even realized were as broken as they were.
Yep.
He has a way of speaking to us that we understand in the timing that we need to
Mhm.
understand it so that we can receive it and act on it and get to that place of joy and abundance where he wants you to be, where he wants
Absolutely.
me to be. And
Absolutely.
he is just an amazing, amazing God that way. Ruth, I thank you. I thank you for
Thank
stopping by
you.
again. It's always good when you come by When Life Speaks and talk to us for a little bit and just update us on the journey and what God is doing. I thank you for sharing, because one of
Thank
the
you.
things that holds us back sometimes is, you pointed it out, you just said it in passing, is that business of feeling alone,
Mhm.
feeling like you were the only one, that nobody else has ever had to deal with this, so therefore nobody else will understand it.
Mhm.
And just by sharing with us tonight, and knowing that somebody is going to come back and listen to this broadcast, or someone will share it with another person, there will be someone who will
Yes.
be able to say, you know what, I am not alone in
Mhm.
this, and that God has me, and that he's going to work it all out. He already has the plan. He has the way made, and all I have to do is walk in it. Walk in it.
Amen.
So I thank you for that tonight. I thank you so much for
Thank
that. And
you.
listeners, I thank you so much for being with us, for traveling this journey. And I hope it will help someone out there to know you can be made whole.
Mhm.
You don't have to settle
Amen.
for half of it, but you can have all of it. You can have your
Yep.
total and complete wholeness, not just physical health, but mental health, emotional health as
Mhm.
well. And we thank God for all of that. And we're not going to end the broadcast like we usually do. Once I thank everybody and thank my guests, we usually go to um, our exit music, if you will, our outro, and listen to that. But tonight we want to just take a minute and just celebrate the life of someone who was very dear to me, to Ruth, to the
Mhm.
broadcast family, and to many of you. And that is Monique Hedeker Green. For those who don't know, Nikki Monique had a show with me here on ALH Broadcasting called Tea Talk and Testimony. And it was on Monday night. She has been battling metastatic breast cancer for some time. She had defied the odds,
Mhm.
but she went home to be with the Lord, I believe, on the 10th of this month. She gained her wings, as some have said. We are praying much for her family. We're praying for those who knew her. We pray for those whose life she touched. She was a very, very special, just a very special woman of God, who always had a word of encouragement for you, who always had a way to inspire somebody else just by her smile, by her kind words. And we are blessed to have been able to share part of her journey. Um, God is gracious enough to put people in our lives that alter us, that will alter us by their walk, by their faith, by their joy, by their love of the Lord. And Nikki Green was one of those people. So please keep the family in prayer. They will be celebrating her life on this Saturday at, I think the wake is at 10. The services will be at 11. They will be at the River Church here, right here in Durham, North Carolina, for those who would be able to attend the service. But right now, we just say thank you, God, for the angel that you put here on the earth to bless our lives. And as we leave the program, know that we'll be back here next week at 7 p.m. right here for When Life Speaks. But right now, we're going to take just a few moments of silence and remember Nikki Green. God bless you and good evening.